And we continue this midday to discuss the fallout of yesterday's riots on Capitol Hill. We now know Ashley Babbitt was the woman shot and killed during the chaos in the Capitol building. And today, more people in the Trump administration are stepping down from their posts following the mob's violent riot. Joining us now is Don Kettl. He's a professor at UT's LBJ School, specializing in public management and public policy. Don, thank you for talking with us this midday.
It's great to be with you here.
First of all, obviously, we've been looking at these pictures and hearing everything that happened. Yesterday was supposed to be boring and ceremonial, just a normal process, but we watched kind of the complete opposite happen. What do we do now to move forward as a country and heal?
Well, it's one of those things we just simply have to focus on. This was the biggest breach of the Capitol since the British invaded the country during the War of 1812. We have two choices at this point. We can either decide that we're going to go deeper into this deep division and polarization that has fractured the country, or we can work on moving ourselves forward. The one option we don't have is to stay where we are now. And there are many people who believe that in many ways our divisions are not so deep if we ask what it is we really want government to do at the grassroots. And so rebuilding at the community level is the key to trying to find ways of providing the healing we so desperately need.
And yesterday, we know that Congress obviously did get back to work and certify the results, but what would have happened if they missed that deadline to finish the count?
Well, in fact, the date was set by law, and a law that was passed way back in the 19th century. And the law, in fact, required that it be done now, and yesterday as it is. So it's possible, and what likely would have happened is that they could have amended the law or passed a resolution or continued the session in some way. But the legal question aside, the simple symbolic question about whether or not our government is being governed, about whether or not our elected officials are able to perform their duties and their obligations, that would have been something would have cut much deeper to the heart of the core of our democracy. So it's really that much more than the legal requirements that were at stake yesterday.
And Don, you know this, but for the second time in just a few months now, the topic of the 25th Amendment has returned. And for people who don't know, the 25th Amendment can grant the vice president to permanently take over for the president if he dies or resigns. Or according to Section 4, the vice president can take over if the president is unfit for the duties. Now, a few months ago, we talked about the 25th Amendment because the president was in the hospital with COVID. But there is a strong voice to invoke it now. So what does that process look like? And could it even be done in the next 2 weeks?
Well, it's something that could be done relatively quickly if, first, Vice President Pence steps forward and argues that it ought to be done. Second, if a majority of the members of the cabinet can step forward. Third, if the president agrees to accept it. Or fourth, if all that happens, and then both houses of Congress vote to approve it. So it's a complicated process. It could be done very quickly, could be done within a day or so, if, in fact, all those steps happen. Given all of the dissent that's going on, it's very likely that it could continue over time. But just this morning, the new Senate Majority Leader, Chuck Schumer, had called for invoking the 25th Amendment. So in a way that we wouldn't have thought possible, this is a very real option that's on the table right now. At the very least, even if it doesn't happen, it's clearly a shot across the president's bow, and it's going to be a signal that things clearly need to change inside the West Wing.
That's certainly something that we're going to continue monitoring. But before we let you go here, I just want to ask, personally, if you've had any reflections or final thoughts on all of the events that unfolded in the past 24 hours.
Well, I've both with myself, talking to my wife, talking to friends of mine, hearing from friends of mine in Washington, there is at the same time a deep sadness about what it is that has happened in terms of the damage to our democracy and our institutions. Watching the reactions of people abroad and wondering what it is that's going on here, but at the same time, a sense of hope that perhaps this is going to be the turning point where we can begin to try to heal some of the divisions in this country. There's a kind of paradox. At the very time we're talking about the essence of democracy, we're also saying we need to try to find ways of beating this virus back by vaccinating people. And that provides a way for us to try to come together around a sense of common goals, to be able to put our society back into shape, to be able to put all the horrors of 2020 behind us, and to be able to move forward. So at the same time, there is this sense of profound sadness and a sense of hope if we can find a way to get our act together. And the vaccination process, I think, actually provides a tool for doing just that at the community level, not only at the national level, but here in Texas and in Austin as well.
Yeah, you said it, a sad day. Someone on my Facebook page said a brutal day for all of us.
Yeah.
So Don, a professor at the University of Texas specializing in public management and public policy, thank you so much for taking your time and all of your insight this midday.
Oh, it's so good to talk to you.